2 weeks ago, GTA 5 came out on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and the Xbox Series S, and it's interesting to say the least. And I'm gonna be giving you guys my full review on this game after I've played it for a decent amount of time. So grab a snack, grab a drink, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Now, to start off, there actually are a few good aspects of the game, and the first thing is the graphics. I mean, the graphics are absolutely stunning. I mean, there's really no denying that the graphics are stunning, and the game feels smooth, the game feels fluid, it feels sharp. It's just downright beautiful. It's a beautiful sight for the eyes. And to specify, there actually are 3 graphics settings. So there's fidelity, performance, and then performance RT. So fidelity allows the player to play at native 4K, but Rockstar actually limited it to 38 frames per second. So it is a resolution upgrade from the previous generation, but it will be running at the same frame rate as the previous generation. And this is by far the best one for the eyes in the sense of like draw distance and like how things look in general and stuff like that. So the only issue is it is at 30 frames per second instead of the 60 frames per second, and that's fidelity. So now we have performance and performance RT. So performance and performance RT run at an upscaled resolution of 4K, meaning it's on like a 1080p, but it's just made like kind of stretched to fit that 4K sort of resolution. However, the key difference is that the frame rate is double that of fidelity. So you will be able to play at that 60 frames per second, but it is at a upscaled resolution instead of native, which means that the draw distances or like the resolution may not be as good as native 4K. But it's still 60 frames per second. I think people will be okay with the trade-off. I'm personally okay with trading off the native 4K with the 60 frames per second. And there's actually a slight difference between performance and performance RT. Performance RT has ray tracing. Yeah, they actually do have ray tracing in this game, but this is something that I do want to touch upon a little bit later in the video. And with that being said, another thing that Rockstar implemented that I really liked is the adaptive triggers. Now, the adaptive triggers only work on the PS5, so I'm sorry to you Xbox players, but adaptive triggers are built into the DualSense controller, not the Xbox controller. So basically what happens is, an example is when you're driving, you actually feel the dampening on the triggers. So when you're accelerating and when you're braking, it's very similar to how the pedals on a car function in real life. And again, this does vary on a vehicular basis. So if you're driving a truck, it may be a lot more hard to press on the acceleration than on a supercar. And the only real issue I see with this is that when you're like shooting or when you're doing an activity that requires a high amount of accuracy, your control and your aim could be thrown off and it can mess with whatever you're doing. But one way to mitigate this is you can literally just turn it off in the settings, and so there's really no need to worry about having to control your aim or like, you know, adjust it based on the adaptive triggers. You can just turn it off and aim how you normally would. And I really like that, so it just gives the user flexibility. The next good thing that Rockstar implemented is the menu. The menu is very robust, it's very intuitive. It allows the user to navigate through the game's various aspects with ease. So for example, I can easily go into a heist if I want to. I can go into my room and plan a heist instead of just having to go into multiplayer, then go from multiplayer into the heist. And I can go into house, body shop, so on and so forth. And speaking of menus, actually, the loading times are a lot faster, and 45 seconds is the maximum for me. And again, it varies from a player to player basis. So one player, it may take like 50 seconds, another player, it may take like 35 or 40 seconds. It's all based on the storage and based on like the optimal, you know, temperatures. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty details, but you guys get what I mean. And I'm so happy that GTA 5 on next gen is finally able to take advantage of the high-speed solid-state drive, and I think that's a huge plus that Rockstar has implemented into the game. Now, while there are some good aspects, there actually are quite a few areas that the game lacks in. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the graphics settings. And I did mention that they are stunning, but these kinds of graphic settings have actually already been around, and PC players have had this ever since their version of GTA 5 came out alongside GTA 5 for PS4 and Xbox One, I believe in 2014. And they've been actually able to run the game at native 4K and at 60 frames per second ever since it launched. So that's a huge issue that I kind of see. But console players are still stuck at either 4K 30 or upscaled 4K 60, and that's kind of like an issue, especially considering the PS5 and the Series X are more than capable. I kind of get it for the Series S, it's not as graphically capable, but the Series X and the PS5, there should be no issue with running it native 4K and at 60 frames per second. There may be some slight optimization issues at launch, but Rockstar should be able to fix it. I mean, it's Rockstar. They've been in this game for years and years and years. And another thing I wanted to talk about regarding the graphics is the ray tracing. Now, the ray tracing seemed really cool when they announced it, since it actually, like, ray tracing is basically a thing where the game emulates how light and reflections actually work in real life, but it's not at all impressive in the enhanced edition. It's really only noticed in shadows and like some vehicles here and there, but for the most part, it's just better to run on regular performance, since the ray tracing is more GPU intensive, and that drops the frame rate in some of the more GPU, CPU intense areas like the forest and, you know, like the mountains and stuff like that. And again, PC has had much better graphics since the beginning, since there is more flexibility with the graphics settings, and I feel like since we're running on more powerful consoles with more graphics capabilities, with more teraflops and better CPUs, I just wish there were more graphics settings like ambient occlusion, draw distance settings, so on and so forth, kind of to give the user more flexibility based on what they want to alter, so they don't, like, they can just alter more stuff and, you know, fine-tune the graphics to what they want to see. And there have actually also been mods linked to realistic graphics, many of which include ray tracing, and this is on PC. On consoles, you can't have mods. And another issue that I see is the addition of quote-unquote new vehicles isn't really good. And what I mean by this is the vehicles that have been added to the game are just variants of vehicles that have already been out for a really long time. And speaking of vehicles, the mechanics aren't at all improved. As you can see when I'm driving in the clip, I have trouble properly controlling the car, and this may just be me, but I honestly feel like the game has the same mechanics and it's just hard to control, and this doesn't really make sense to me, especially considering the name says enhanced and expanded. And I honestly don't know. This is kind of like a problem, and there's actually even more problems. Now, for the ugly, oh boy, these issues are pretty ugly. And the very first thing is the misleading name, as I just mentioned. GTA 5 Enhanced and Expanded. I kind of get the enhanced part because of like the graphics update and the improved like fire and light physics, I guess. But the expanded aspect of the game is absolutely not there. And this game, in my opinion, is literally the exact same thing as the previous games, just with those slight improvements. There's no new heists, there's no map expansions, there's no new characters, there's no actually new vehicles, and there's no new businesses to start, so on and so forth. I feel like I'm playing GTA 5 on a PC, and that's basically like what I'm doing, except I'm playing with a controller on a PS5 instead of on PC. And I feel like Rockstar completely lied to us in this sense, since there's really no new player experience for the average user to enjoy. And one more thing that I want to mention, it's, in my opinion, by far the dumbest thing Rockstar has ever done. One of the most dumb things I've seen a gaming company do is the loss of all your data on the previous generation. Yep, everything. You didn't hear me wrong.
You gotta be kidding me.
So, for those of you that don't know, once GTA 5 is downloaded on the PS5 or Xbox Series X, Series S, whatever you're playing, and you open up the app to migrate your character from the last gen to current gen, you are asked to literally wipe all your data on the previous generation and migrate everything to the next generation. And this means that if you want to go back to PS4 or Xbox One and play GTA 5 with your friends on that console, you can't if you've migrated your character. It's literally useless. And I did this, but thankfully I'm not really affected, since both of my friends that play GTA 5 do have a PS5. But for those of you that have a PS5 or a Series X, Series S, whatever you play, and still have friends on the previous generation, please, please, please be careful. And this also means that there's really no crossplay, which really sucks, since it would have been nice to be able to do this like a lot of other games have been doing, Call of Duty, Apex, Fortnite. It honestly hurts, and I personally think that this game had so much potential to be amazing, and for people to have fun with the new generation, take advantage of all that stuff. Instead, it's kind of been a total disaster. I'm going to rate this game a 4.5 out of 10. I feel like I'm being generous, but it honestly hurts, since this game is my favorite game to ever be released, and it's brought so many fond memories throughout middle school and throughout high school, all the way up to today. And Rockstar, being the company that they are, could have done so many things right, but they just chose not to. And unfortunately, for the people that have been disappointed, myself included, we gotta wait until the next GTA for a totally new experience. And now that I've made my thoughts clear, I want to hear what you guys think down in the comments below. Thank you so much for tuning into Stu Griff again. Be sure to sub to the channel if you have not yet done so. Be sure to hit the like button so I know you enjoyed this video. Follow me on Instagram, link down below, and follow me on TikTok, also link down below. Thanks so much for watching. This is Sugar signing off. Peace out.